Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
The thing about that too, the mistake that I make often is try to love Kamala the way I want to be loved. Now, you know that's not love. That's me doing something to get something. Let me say it again. When you try to love someone the way you receive love. So for example, if I hear some good news and I get excited, I get really, really excited. And so if somebody tells me good news, I'm gonna get excited. I'm gonna get excited with that. And then I get mad because they're not getting excited. But that's really selfish. That's not reaching the person where they need to be met, but rather reaching the person where I need to be met in hopes of getting something in return. Mm-hmm.
You know, we in the therapy world like to feel like we know a lot of stuff, right? And so we talk about all kinds of different concepts, and we've done it all along the way. But nothing that we talk about is new as it relates to the Word of God. Here we are talking about how God is coming to get us, how we get to be now physically, not just mentally, a part of something.
Yes, Lord.
And so this was a concept that Maslow talked about a long time ago, love and belonging. He had this great hierarchy of needs, and if you've got safety and security, you've got shelter, you've got all of those things, then once you have that secure foundation, then you can focus on love and belonging. But here it is that God is saying you already belong. You don't have to worry about love and belonging in the way that Maslow talked about it. But the interesting thing is, just in the same way that Maslow identified that love and belonging is something that we need to thrive as human beings, here's where we're saying to you that, yeah, we agree. We do need love and belonging to thrive as human beings. We do need love and belonging to be able to experience care and compassion and empathy and having a place in the world. We do need love and belonging to be part of community. And yes, we're with that.
In the kingdom of God.
So if we're being honest, and I'm hoping we are, we have started by being honest and vulnerable ourselves.
Yes.
And that's kind of the point. If we're honest, all we want to do is be in control.
Yes.
That's all we want. We want to control our relationships. We want to control the outcome of things. We want to know what's coming next. We always want to be in control. The trouble with being in control and having a relationship with God is that the two don't go together. I can't be in control and you can't be in control at the same time.
That's right.
You ever done a tug of war? If we're both pulling, somebody has to win.
Yeah.
Somebody does.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about God is that he gives us choice.
Yeah.
So if I want to pull in my direction, he's going to let me. Mm-hmm. Am I going to be free of the consequences of my direction? No. But he's going to let me. Mm-hmm. So I want for us to pause and really think about how many ways am I trying to control people and situations in my life that I have no business trying to control.
But let me ask you a question. Where does this obsession with control come from? Why are we so obsessed with being in control?
Because we're afraid.
Because we're motivated by those three demons.
Fear.
Fear.
Shame.
Shame.
And guilt.
And guilt. Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Live with KW and
Jay.
There we go. That was it. That was it. That was it.
I was sitting here anticipating it to make
That
sure.
was it. That was it. Good evening, Sister Linda Foster. Welcome. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. We are excited to be with you on a cold Monday night where they say 80% of the United States of America is under snow. So, and it is cold in places, even Florida is feeling cold. We have snow on the ground here, and it's cold. We thought we left all of this behind in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's cold.
Followed us here.
It followed us here.
The audacity.
At least it's not that lake effect snow that you get
At
off Lake
least
Erie.
it's not that lake effect.
You are correct, sir.
That was some stuff there now.
That Lake Erie snow. That Lake Erie snow is nothing to play with, buddy.
Oh, yes. Good evening. We are so happy that you could join us on tonight. We're going to have a wonderful conversation, but today is Monday. And before we start our conversation, I want to hear what our team here is celebrating, what they're thankful for. Let's start with you tonight, Pastor Gibson. What are you celebrating? What are you thankful for?
Well, I'll talk about most of it later on as we talk, but
okay.
The other thing that I'm thankful for is I'm thankful that I got heat in my house.
Yes.
Yes. And we got food in the refrigerator. I just had haystacks.
Woo. That's what's up.
Winter chicken dinner. That's what I'm really thankful about. Yeah. So I'm just thankful that I'm in a space that we're in. We got good warm. I got a place over my head. Really.
I love that. I love that. What are you thankful for?
You know what? It's kind of in keeping with what Pastor Gibson was talking about. But I was sitting here as we were talking about cold versus the lake effects, cold and all that business. I was thinking to myself, you know what? I am grateful to be able to feel the cold.
Yeah.
We take it for granted, this whole skin thing,
yes.
Being able to sense our environment.
Yes.
There are some people who can't feel that, and that's not a good thing.
Yes.
And so I'm grateful for the ability to feel.
Yes. I'm grateful for being here despite the cold. I hate the cold. I struggle with seasonal depression, and I hate this time of year is not meant for me. It's not meant for me. But I praise God that I'm up, I'm about. I was at the gym yesterday and exercising and doing well. Thanks to my great wife right here. So Amen. I'm excited about it. So I'm grateful to God that I'm here despite the cold. Again, we want to say thank you for joining us. Please, Sister Linda and others, please tell us what you're thankful for on this Monday night. What is it that you are celebrating? Kamala?
I was just going to say it. And remember, if you're joining us for the first time and you're wondering, well, what are they talking about? What do you mean celebrate Monday? Isn't Monday the bad day? So we're trying to fix our narrative. We're trying to create moments of celebration. Too often we spend time focusing on the negative and not recognizing the very positive things that we have going on in our lives. So we're using Monday as that opportunity for you to also do a little bit of that inward connection with self and noticing what good and wonderful things are happening in your life. So we encourage you to share with us. Go ahead and comment in the chat about what you're grateful for today, what you're celebrating today, and how you're celebrating the positives in your life.
And Kamala, your blog, Language Creates Reality, is a part of what we're trying to do. Use our language to create our reality.
Absolutely.
So yes, there are bad stuff, but we don't want to focus on them. And even in the bad stuff, we want to find something to be thankful for.
Because there's all kinds of stuff happening.
Now, Kamala, also, what is it that we do on Monday nights? I know we are thankful on Monday, but that's just general. What is it that we're doing here on Monday nights?
Well, I'm thankful to you guys because you are going to head over to kwministries.net/shop. And you are going to get to buying. So part of what we're doing here on a Monday night, we have these really great conversations with individuals just like you, talking about their lives, talking about the things that they're doing, good, bad, and indifferent, sharing our vulnerabilities, our strengths, our challenges, the ways that we're moving forward. And we are doing that all in the context of also encouraging you to head on over to our store because, it's our stuff. Do we have a little bit of bias? Sure we do. But we also have some great stuff going on in there. And we would love for you to be able to benefit from it. So check us out. We have books. We have digital media. We've got free content as well as paid for content. So please head on over to www.kwministries.net/shop and you can get to buy.
Speaking of the cold, one cool thing that's in our shop is mugs. You can buy your own KW Ministries mug. I wish I had it. And I'll have a picture of it before the night's over, and you'll get to see. And you can jump over. Sister Remo, I got that mug, and when I go to visit her, she has it on her tea machine.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, there it is, man.
There we go.
You jump over there and get your own KW Ministries mug,
and it's a nice little reminder to join us every Monday night.
There you go. There you go. Listen, I am excited tonight to speak with. We don't have a different guest, as you know. Kamala and I are co-hosts. Pastor Gibson is our guest, our permanent guest co-host. We have so much fun, we wouldn't get rid of him even if we wanted to.
Right.
Because
Amen.
he brings so much to the table. And so tonight he is getting ready to go on a mission trip. Let's put that up there real quick. And Sister Foster says, I am glad to be here with you all. I promised myself to be in the house tonight.
There you
go.
Thank
you. We thank you very much for being here. And we're celebrating you being here. Pastor Gibson is getting ready to head to the Philippines. He is heading to the Journey to Hope. We'll be conducting the Journey to Hope evangelistic campaign at Digo Central Seventh-day Adventist Church in, how do you say that? Davao, Philippines. And so we wanted to talk with him tonight. We wanted to get you to, as he travels, there are expenses that come with that. We're excited tonight that folk have put together, chipped in, and they have raised the funds that they're looking for. But now let's give them some pocket money. Let's give them some. Sister Linda Law is thankful for life and liberty. Oh, praise God. We are thankful for that also. Let's give them some pocket money. So that's what we said. We wouldn't have a separate guest on tonight. We would have just the three of us having a conversation, and throughout, we want to put up Pastor Gibson's Cash App and ask you to please just, there you go, support him or his wife, Linda, as they travel. They're going to need spending money and stuff like that. So, let's go. I want to start us off with $50. I want to put $50, Mom. If you grab our Cash App, Mom, and send them $50.
Amen.
We would be grateful. So that's what we are contributing from here. And so we're asking you as we go throughout tonight, we just want to send Pastor and Sister Gibson off from KW Ministries with a little thank you, something. So if you could, match my 50, go higher. I know Sister Remo is out there, and I know other folk are out there. So please, we're asking you to come in and support. And okay, I see it sliding across the screen, but if we could put up his Cash App on the screen itself and just leave it up there for the night. And when we do our hashtag stuff, so let's hashtag his Cash App tonight. So that way folk can see it and we can go to work. All right, Pastor, we will talk about Cash App Pastor Gibson is Pastor Gibson's, or Cash App Mistress LD Gibby is his wife, Sister Linda.
First up.
So there we go. We did our part. So we're asking you to please jump on and make a donation.
Thank you.
Please, so as they go on their trip. All right, Pastor Gibson, what I'd like to talk to you about, and we will talk about more on the mission trip. We can take that down and for the moment. What I want to talk to you about, Sister Foster is thankful again for life in general. God is good. Woke up in a cold house, but the heat was restored.
Hey.
Listen. You ain't got something to shout about today.
I'm shouting at you on that.
God's restoration power. Yes,
man.
indeed.
I want to talk to you, Pastor, about healing a community And let me say quickly, Pastor Gibson is the pastor of the Philadelphia Seventh-day Adventist Church here in the city of Shreveport, Louisiana. Pastor Gibson is also a practicing licensed social worker. And I think that was just the perfect fit for ministry, because he understands not just the spiritual mindset or the spiritual needs, but that socioeconomic part of people that what Jesus did was Jesus met the people's needs.
Yes.
Then he bid them follow him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a dynamic combination there for ministry. And so, Doc, as we talk tonight, you are the expert.
I don't know about the expert. I think you sitting next to the expert, but
as practicing theologian and marriage and family therapist, I think we can put together a really good conversation tonight about community building and healing our community.
Yes.
Let me start out with, how does a community know it's broken? Let's start with that conversation. How does a community know it's broken?
Those are sensitive conversations that many, if we're really honest about it, we don't like having those conversations.
Oh, no.
About being broken.
Mm-mm.
And I think from the social work perspective is being able to first identify the strengths that have brought people as far as they've come.
Mm-hmm.
And then where you begin to show where you've come to as far as you can come.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess without using the term broken, you need a push to go further. Mm-hmm. You've hit your plateau, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But many times it's just being able to identify what has broken you, what has broken me. Mm-hmm. And I'll speak for myself, for my own, transparency or whatever the case may be. I grew up, my mother was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And so having to deal with a mother that was an alcoholic, and she wasn't always as bad. She wasn't as bad early on. She didn't get really bad with her alcoholism until I got to be a teenager and in high school. Mm-hmm. And so not knowing that much of the stuff that I was doing in school, mm-hmm. always trying to get into an activity at school. I tried to join every activity that came through. If they told me I was going to be in the band, if the band had an opportunity, I was going to band. They had a choir, mm-hmm. I did a choir. They did a debate team, I do a debate team. So I would try to do anything I could not to be home. And I didn't realize that till later. Mm-hmm. But I was doing things that were pushing me to not be home because mm-hmm. I didn't see my mother the way she was. And it really, not knowing until I started doing my own social work classes, and as we had Dr. Kamala, as we were talking about group sessions in class, mm-hmm. I'm thinking about a group session that I need, and those kind of things. And so, how does a community know that it's broken? I don't know if it ever really knows that it's broken unless somebody says so. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you don't see the brokenness because you're functioning in it. Mm-hmm. And if you're functioning, you think you're okay, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And same thing with marriage. Sometimes you think things are just going, but things are broken, mm-hmm. And you need to address them.
So it's interesting that you started with that question. It triggered a thought for me. And mm-hmm. Pastor Gibson talked about kind of the emotional brokenness that sometimes we don't recognize. But it triggered a thought with me that there's this social psychology theory called broken windows theory. Mm-hmm. And it talks about how you can kind of determine the brokenness of a community based on the physical environment. Mm-hmm. So if you want to put it simply, broken windows mm-hmm. lead to more broken windows. And mm-hmm. this particular theory, they were talking more about the development of crime in communities, mm-hmm. and how if a place is already dilapidated, torn down, mm-hmm. only leads to more of the same in mm-hmm. the community. So it's it's interesting because those things are not by themselves.
No.
My community doesn't continue to break down only because of the physical elements. It's also the emotional elements that Pastor Gibson talked about.
And that's what I wanted for us to dive in. Pastor Gibson, I think, gave us a good way to start diagnosing issues within communities. Is, people make up community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so community is not this enterprise void of people. It's real people. And a community reflects what's happening in the lives of majority of the people.
Yeah.
But Pastor Gibson so aptly pointed out, but you have to be willing to have that discussion. You have to be willing to say, hey, yes, we're functioning, but everything is not okay. So my question, Pastor Gibson, and I know that Pastor Graham is on. If you wanted to please contribute, would love to hear your thoughts on this. Is how do we get people talking? And what role can we play as pastors in getting people talking? We pastor in the city of Shreveport, Louisiana, and Shreveport, Louisiana is fourth to sixth in mental health issues. The fourth to sixth city in the United States of America with mental health issues. The city of Shreveport, Louisiana, we have 50,000 students that go to high school. We have 5,000 that graduate. With a high school, without a high school diploma, you'll make 19,000. With a high school diploma, you'll make 22,000. With a college diploma, you're making 48,000. So if you have 50,000 students, only 5,000 graduating, and this is pre-pandemic issues. I was speaking to Principal Middleton of the Caddo Parish Magnet High School, and he was sharing with me there's a swath of students that are just missing from the school system since the pandemic. We're just not even going to school at all. How do we get this conversation going, Mr. Social Worker, Pastor, from a community level where, and this is not unique to Shreveport, Washington, D.C. and New York City, and you have all these different issues going on all throughout the United States. How do we come together and talk as a people, and does the church play a role?
The church definitely plays a role. If you look at, with the day being Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and observance of his birthday holiday, the church played a vital role in the civil rights struggle and the civil rights movement, and coming through slavery, coming through prohibition, coming through all of those historical segments of this nation's development. And it's still, and what has happened is there has to be a rebuilding of trust in the church, to the church, with the church, that because you've seen all of the things that have happened on the news with churches, if it's not some scandal with some child, or if it's not some scandal with some money, or if it's not some scandal with this, or not some scandal with that, and people have seen that. I mean, the development and the progression of the media has brought more attention to the church where some of the issues were not seen. And so I think part of it is being able to have the honest conversations and then allowing them for them to see that you care.
So, Pastor Gibson, let me interrupt you 1 second to add. We're not saying that the media is lying on us.
No, I'm not. No,
we're
it's not
owning that
right.
We as church have issues. The priest did molest those children. Money is the guy in New York that was using jewelry and stuff, that was using church money to buy jewelry. That did happen. Right. People are being raped. Those things are happening in church, and we need to own that stuff.
And that's where the ownership comes to say, hey, I think what happens is like, there's one bad apple can spoil the bunch. that many times you get clumped. So it's no different than it's stereotyping in the church. So it's stereotyping to the church. Well, if that church did it, all churches doing it. And not and for us as church and leaders to say, hey, it has happened. Yeah, it's
Right.
happened.
We want the police to own up. Hey, you guys have bad cops.
Yeah.
So we need to own up and say, hey, we have broken trust, and this is not Seventh-day Adventist, Baptist, Catholics. This is church. The non-church person out there isn't looking at which denomination it is. The non-church person is looking at growing up in the community. We, like you talked about, Dr. King, and I mean, and even there has to be some honesty with history. Is that Dr. King had his own issues, and the church has always had its own issues, but we've always hid it. So now that it's there for everybody to see, Dr. Jesse Wilson, one of our professors at Oakwood, I think does a masterful job in calling our church to accountability. Our church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church in particular, to accountability to say, hey, we got issues. Yeah. And it's okay to say we have issues, because if we're going to engage a community that has issues and they have issue with us because we have broken trust, then us trying to play the mask game of, we're perfect will not help in the healing process.
And it's, you see it in hospitals, you see it all the time. There are doctors that have lung cancer that are treating lung cancer patients. And they're nutritionists that are unhealthy in their eating, but they're teaching people how to eat healthy. All of us have some issue or whatever, and so what it begins to not. So as we begin to have these dialogues, it's not to be judgmental,
right?
It's not to. We all make judgments, but the judgments don't have to be condemning.
Right.
And when we can begin to have compassion instead of condemnation, and then when we can have the compassionate talk that, and to not always say, I understand what you're going through, because you don't.
Right.
I don't understand what you're going through. That's why I want you to talk to me so I can understand
so I can learn.
So I can learn and begin to as you tell, I can't totally understand. I can get a grasp of what you're doing and what you're going through. But so I think part of how we start having the conversation is just being genuine. Hey, how you doing? And not as a passing by statement of saying how you doing, but how are you doing? Genuinely, how are you doing? And then I've heard Dr. Marcus Cosby say, we've cultivated a culture of hypocrisy in the church. That we say, how you doing? So, how you doing, Brother Winston? Oh, I'm too blessed to be stressed. I'm too anointed to be disappointed. No, I'm asking you, how are you? I know that you're too blessed. We're all blessed and to be stressed. But how are you today?
So Kamala, the conversation of community building, of diagnosing issue with community, and how can the church help? What I'm hearing Pastor Gibson say, we are hearing our discussion leading to is church needs to be honest to say, hey, we have some issues, we have some challenges. But now once we are honest about those challenges, how do we now begin to make that next step now to push out into community, to engage community, to engage? You spoke about the broken window pieces. How do we help with the brokenness in ours, for example, Pastor Gibson, in our own city? How do we help with the education crisis of such a low graduation? And, in our city in particular, one of the things we notice with the education system is the magnet schools. And as my children and I talk about the magnet schools, and believe me, we're grateful for them, it's kind of weed out children And so, you're good enough to come to this school. So how does the church engage that? How do we help with that? How do we start that conversation with our community?
I think what you do is what you all have been doing at, I think, Atkins, and what we've been doing at Queensboro, talking with the administrations, finding ways to be able to be engaged with the students and parents there on a felt need basis. So on just a entry level basis, hey, this is the pastor. Hey, I'm Pastor Gibson. Whatever the case, you go to a family. Being engaged, finding out from these educational systems, what can we do? Because we
talk
have
to us some about what you do with the elementary school.
So one of the things that we did with the elementary school, every year we give out uniforms to the school. So we order the uniforms from the school. We get their sizes and everything, and we order the uniforms. And then on back to school night, we take the uniforms up and we take and deliver them to the school. And so we get a chance to meet them. Hey, how you doing? Take some pictures. They're there for back to school night. So then we also gave out 10 food boxes for Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving that we gave out the 10 food boxes to be able to find out, just to be able to do those kind of things. And it's like little small things, just, little things to be able to send ask the principal to send out in their weekly newsletter or their monthly, every once a month. Let's let them know this is what's going on at the church. And if you need, and so we're trying to get, the one thing that we're trying to do with Queensboro is to find a community needs assessment, to do a community needs assessment, because we can say, look, they need food boxes, but people might not need food boxes.
They have to tell us what they need.
So instead of us trying to figure out, like, just tell us what you need. So then we'll know, okay, this month we'll be able to handle this. Next month we'll handle this. And so it gives us some organization to it, and it gives us some relevancy, so that we are meeting the needs and not just giving out stuff to say that we checked it off in our community service aspect, and things of that nature.
Why did you choose an elementary school?
Well, that was chosen prior to me coming. And because it's literally, you can walk to the school from the church. It's about a mile, but you can walk to the school. It's not that, it's right by the Willis-Knighton Hospital, right across the street from Willis-Knighton North. And I believe that we had, Cedar Grove and Philadelphia both have a lot of educators throughout the school system. And so Dr. Burton had been connected to there. Elder Cheryl Hart had been connected to Queensboro. I think Cheryl had been an administrator or a teacher there at Queensboro. And so because she was connected to the Adventist Church, and although she was going to Minden, they connected to Queensboro. And so that was already in place well before I got here.
So the church having one proximity to the school, and then the connection that's already in the church, they took advantage of that to then begin ministering to that school.
Yes.
But now, in keeping with the whole broken windows theory, Kamala, can you see how they working with the elementary school, grabbing those kids at that level? So, for example, at Atkins Elementary School, one of the things we do is tutoring.
Yep.
Can you see how working at the elementary school level begins to set in motion higher graduation rates for those students as they grow up? And how do you think that will then impact that community, those broken windows that we?
So it's interesting because as you guys were kind of discussing back and forth, I was thinking about how, Pastor Gibson, you started off talking about individual healing, right? And I was thinking about how this is a very parallel process, in the same way that individual brokenness, or recognizing individual brokenness, comes from that self-reflection and that awareness, is the same way community brokenness gets recognized. We start to look and we do needs assessments. What actually is happening here that needs to be addressed, and how do we do it? And it's the same thing with the healing process. Now that I recognize that there are some broken pieces, what's the work of fixing that looking like? And so really what you guys have been talking about, not just from, because sometimes we think about it as a project, right? We're going to do this project.
It can't be a project.
But it's not, but it's never just a project, right? Because even if your project, to use that word, is focused around meeting, giving out food boxes. If you're doing that in the context of, I know that this is the need, and here's how we're meeting that need, it becomes less of a project and more that the community and the people that are in it sees that somebody values them as individuals and is interested enough to meet their needs. So it's now when I feel valued as an individual, then maybe I'm going to turn that around and see, maybe I can impact somebody else's life positively.
Right.
And we have this ripple effect.
Right. And I want to go back, though, to how working with the elementary school helps to help and because, again, this is easily duplicated in other cities where, neither Pastor Gibson nor I pastor humongous churches. We can't buy 100 computers.
Yeah.
We can't, but what we can do is work with the example that we're using, the elementary school, that kind of cuts off the negative. How we treat those children at that age will determine,
builds them a concept of the future.
And that's right. And that's what I'm asking you to help us reflect on.
Yes. So, thinking about that, building the future. So if I grab you at an early age, I can really impact your perspective on the world.
Right.
And so I'm impacting you from an educational level. I'm tutoring. I'm impacting you from the level of, again, going back to value. Here is an individual or an entity that's coming in, there's noticing the value in me. And when you pour into me in this way, then this contributes to how I pour into my community. As I get older, not only am I seeing those changes in how I'm moving through navigating academia, that academia spills over into, well, how now am I navigating a career workspace or a college space? And so it creates more opportunities for those same children to come back to that community to build it up, as opposed for it continuing to go in that same direction.
What are your thoughts, Pastor Gibson?
I think Kamala's right on. I think that's spot on in terms of the early. It's just like the earlier you could, early detection.
There you go. I like that.
It's an early detection
or early intervention.
And early intervention. So, like, for instance, I did early intervention in Philadelphia. And so when you're able to grab a child at 8 months old that had either some physical delay, some cognitive delay, some other type of delay, now you can begin to work in areas and so you can work on areas to help with that early intervention. And so at the elementary school level, it's almost like our early intervention in the sense that as we're working with the young person, teaching now the parents, guardians, grandmothers, whoever, aunties, uncles, whoever, along the way.
Right.
So you begin to build the dual relationship. I got them in school, and then maybe I take Tyrone home, and then as I'm talking to grandma, hey grandma, Tyrone needs to read 2 chapters.
Right.
She needs to read 2 pages today.
Right.
Of chapter 3.
Right.
And is that good for you? And as you're talking to grandma may say, I struggle with that myself.
Right.
We got something. Right. Hey, look, don't fret. We got you.
Right.
Do what you can, and you let us know what we can do to help you. Help Tyrone facilitate getting through those 2 pages for whatever he needs to do for Miss Taylor's class.
Right. Pastor Gibson, I hear a lot of talk about churches are empty after the pandemic, the exodus of the pandemic. We had some folk at the house for lunch this past Saturday, and they were from out of town. And the lady was saying, listen, you guys have church online. I just go to church online, saves me on gas, so forth and so on. And everybody's asking, how do get people to come back to church? Blah, 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 blah. I think, Pastor Gibson, community outreach, taking the church into the community through the elementary school and through other programs that I'm hoping you'll share with us and so forth and so on, will help to build back and restore some trust that has been lost in the church. Because again, back in civil rights era, it's not that the church didn't have issues. The church had issues, but the church was doing so much for the community. The church was out in the community so much that the benefits outweighed the issues. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest thing that affected not only that affected the African American community the most, and this is going to sound strange, is desegregation. When we became desegregated, we became independent, not really depending, not being interdependent. We stopped being community once we became, because what was happening with segregation, we became protective of one another. If you will, I was going to protect that family down the street. I wanted to protect Kamala and Winston. I wanted to protect Gabby. I wanted to protect Linda. I need to protect.
So let me ask you a question.
That doesn't. So in getting to the church piece.
Hold on, before you go on there. I want to ask, because I've heard that several times. Let me ask you a question. Was that us behaving out of trauma versus, because if once we got desegregation, right? Well, now all of a sudden we don't care about each other anymore. Was that, how we're at home, you can't talk about my mama, but I can.
Yeah.
Right? So was that behaving out of trauma versus a real community?
It was traumatic, but somehow we made it work. But we thought that was the issue. We thought that was the total solution.
Right. Oh, so once we fought and won that battle.
Once we won that battle, we never really fixed anything else around it. It's just that we won the battle. But then what has happened in the church now, the church of today, is that we have become enamored by preaching and sermonizing. We've been sermonized in the church that you really just come. Many folks just come to hear a word. I need a word. I need a word from the Lord. But if we really know what the Sabbath is about, if we really know what church is about, when Malachi talks about bring ye all the tithe into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, so that there may be meat. What was the meat for? It was to take care of people. It was to take care of the community. And so the temple was supposed to be the place that took care of people in the community.
How do we get that back?
I actually have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, come on.
So, and it's probably where we're going anyway. How do you do that without, what's the word I'm looking for? Without encouraging and I hate to put it this way, this idea of I am owed a handout, and helping to create that continual culture that doesn't actually grow the community, but keeps the community in that stuck place.
So this is where we begin now in the modern context, that we begin financial literacy, community development.
Teach a man to fish.
So community sustainability. So we can fix up the community. How are we going to be able to get you to learn how to sustain it? If I give you this PlayStation, how are you going to be able to take care of it? And begin to value that because I've seen plenty of inner cities that they've cleaned up housing developments, they've cleaned up the housing authorities, and within 5 years it's back, because we haven't taught how to become stewards of what
Mm.
we have. And so it becomes, more than anything, it becomes a stewardship issue that we learn, that we teach, that, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns, Kamala, is the enabling and entitling that takes place when you do give. Because I've heard members, not here, but I've heard members back east. The church supposed to give me that. Well, you know, not understanding the structure of church. I don't care what church you go to. Not understanding that the church is not a revenue generating entity.
Well, I heard you say first, though. I think it was just so crucial. Why we can't give our churches? Why we can't give? Why we're not a welfare institution and we don't have resources like that to just give like that? But what you said, though, there is something we can give. We can't give dollars, but we can give training. What you just said. We can do financial literacy classes. We can do health classes, cooking classes, teaching mothers how to take care of their children. Because one of the challenges with broken window theory, one of the challenges is teenage pregnancy. Those are some of the challenges. And one of the things that I don't necessarily subscribe to in churches, within our context, is, I don't believe in disfellowshipping people that get pregnant. So a teenager gets pregnant, they're traumatized. No teenager goes into this saying they want to get pregnant, right? They get pregnant because they were having.
That's probably an indication.
That's still trauma,
anyway.
Exactly. So but this pregnancy has traumatized them. This shame that had come down now on their family. And now as a church, we withdraw fellowship. That's just demonic. As a church, we now withdraw fellowship. Instead, what we should do, the discipline I believe we should do, is set up teenage mother classes. How do I be a mother so that now I have a child? How can I grow this child up to be a productive citizen of the community? Your thoughts? Pastor Frozen? I think Pastor Gibson is frozen for a second, but until he comes back. So again, I'm saying, wouldn't it be better for us to have parental classes and then teach this teenage mother how to be a mother?
I think that's crucial. I think part of it too goes back to what we talked about earlier, also being aware of our individual processes in that, because we can also set up all of those things, but I'm not the right facilitator for it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
And so being able to be intentional about how we put those things together so that individuals do get the benefit that they need from something like that.
I think Pastor Gibson's back with us. Did you hear any of that, Pastor Gibson?
No, it broke right when we got into it.
Oh, what I was saying, sir, was that, for example, when a teenager gets pregnant, because that's one of the challenges.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that about being disfellowship.
Right. And I'm saying my argument is, why not set up parenting classes so the censorship or the discipline, whatever we want to call it, will be, as a church family, we're supporting you. Here's what we're doing as a church family. We're going to buy a year's worth of diaper. We're going to buy a year's worth of clothes, a year, blah, 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 blah. Your part of this partnership is to come to a parenting class every week, is to come to a breastfeeding class every week, is to come to a nutrition class every week. And, we have different courses of how this teenage mother now becomes a better parent so that she and the teenage mother and the teenage father can co-parent and grow up a child
that doesn't necessarily repeat that cycle.
That does not repeat the cycle and becomes and contributes to community. What are your thoughts? Let me just read what Tony says real quick. Tony says that's when they really need the church the most. Exactly. That's exactly when that's when they're most vulnerable. That's when they're in the most pain. Go ahead, Pastor.
Yeah, that's been one of my for lack of a better term, pet peeves about church is that the disfellowshipping process, especially in that context, and it's it's a double standard because I was a teenage father, but I wasn't looked upon as shameful.
Mm.
The girl was,
Mm-hmm.
and so what happens is the boy gets to skate, but we need to teach responsibilities on both sides.
Right.
That it becomes that if I believe, and so in my context, I didn't get looked at. I mean, there were folks that didn't, they never looked at me in any kind of harsh sense. They were nurturing. So those that were concerned, I hadn't joined the church yet, but uh, they were concerned. So they talked to me about how to parent. My parents, although they were separated, my dad was living in California, my mom living in DC, and they taught me about parenting. So uh, that's where we become. That's where we begin to have these type of ministries that are there to help facilitate that, to help facilitate parenting, to help facilitate. Because I worked in the foster care system, I believe that it's somewhere along the line that part of the tract as you're coming through church along is a skills learning skills on how to live. I think that's where the church can be a benefit to young people as well, so that they can become job ready or school ready or all those kind of things. And I think like what you do the tutoring. So at the New Start Church in Minden, we had started doing literacy at the library, a literacy every fourth Sabbath at the library. And it's being able to, I think, Isaiah talks about Isaiah 58, and we talk about the Sabbath. And many of us come to church for Sabbath, go home, go get our chocolates, fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, all the stuff. But Isaiah 58:6 says this: Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke,
Mm.
to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? And we look at it in the homeless sense, but there are folks that are not in God's home per se, not the church body, the building, but the church,
Right.
the
Right.
body of believers, that they don't have a home because people have done what you talked about, Winston,
Right.
disfellowship them or shun them. But I believe that's where, and many of these things are things that we can facilitate. Sometimes we have to stop being so worried about what the money that we have. We don't. I don't believe we trust that God will supply all of our needs.
No, we
One,
don't.
one of my Baptist pastor friends said his goal. He said, Jimmy, if I had a building that you could use, I'll give it to you. I'm trying to get my church to that point that if we had property and you needed it, I want to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I want us to use the money that we got. Use it.
Mm-hmm.
Even in your context, Winston, what you did with us at Philadelphia. You said, hey, you got a need, brother. That's And when we begin to freely give ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
the Lord in turn freely blesses us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not doing it to get the blessing. We're doing it to free somebody else from whatever
And
burden.
the blessing is a natural outcome. Pastor Evans Melodor said, this fellowship is only for cancers, not for the wounded.
Mm.
Hashtag.
Hashtag that one, yeah.
This fellowship is only for cancers,
Not for the
wounded.
Melodor.
And
Yes.
and we are paying. We are paying a horrible price for that. But I believe our church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is doing better at that, because we are paying a horrible horrible price for that foolish action that we did back in the day. That was powerful, Pastor Melodor.
I think
1 second. Lynn Sheehy says craft classes. Yes, craft classes will be crucial for helping to build community. Go ahead, Pastor.
I lost my train of thought, so let's keep going.
Kamala was about to say something.
Pastor Melodor's thought prompted something with me because, even though we're talking about the context of this fellowship in that certain context, teenage pregnancy, there are other contexts as well. There was this thing that I saw on social media, just kind of anecdotally, was talking about the man that comes to church and he's drunk and he's stumbling about, and the people look at him and they turn up their noses at him and they shoo him away from beside them. But he goes to the bar and the bartender asks him how he's doing and gives him a seat and lets him sleep it off, and he gets fellowship there.
Yes.
And so what does that say about the way we approach fellowship?
Yes.
When there's clearly wounding, when there's clearly a need, how do we shun?
But Kamala, Pastor Gibson, do you know that's us telling on ourselves? When we're not able to meet the drunkard, when we're not able to embrace the murderer, when we're not able to embrace the rapists, when we're not able to embrace the person coming straight out of the club and coming down to our altar and vomiting all over our chairs, it tells us that we have yet to experience the grace of God in our own hearts.
And isn't that what Jesus was dealing with, not only with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and as Kim Mann would say, the Wannasees? It's also dealing with the disciples. The disciples were having the same issues that the Pharisees were having. It's just on a different level. And it was dealing with that whole elitism and I think that's what I was going to say. The church was from church history, it's been toxic from the top down.
Right.
It's been toxic, that it's been punitive. And then what happens is we see God as punitive.
Right.
We don't see the love, mercy, and grace of God. And Winston, I have to tell you, you have helped me change some stuff about what I've been preaching about. And in a sense that, we used to always say, I ain't worthy of this. I ain't worthy. Yes, you are. You're worthy because God invested.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have yet to see anybody on Wall Street invest in something that they're not interested in and that they don't see value in.
That's right.
So do we deserve it? That's one thing. But we're worthy of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're worthy, and we're worthy of it because He says we're worthy.
Simply because God said so. Simply because this week. Well, I won't talk about it.
Yeah. We created the line. We created the line on which other exists, and we can erase that line.
And we can, and we have to do the how. Let's talk about and I think because I think we can get this in here, of how you're going to the Philippines to preach over the next from January 26th to February 3, and there is a power. The gospel is liberating. Let's make no mistake about it. The gospel is liberating, but I believe the challenge with the liberation of the gospel is how the church and the Roman Catholic Church and us as offsprings has just screwed that thing up in a major way in the punitive description of God. So, for example, in our church, there's this whole argument of you all talking about just grace. Yes, I pray they don't fire me. But yes, I only preach about God's grace, nothing more. That's it. There is nothing else to preach about but God's grace. Yes.
His prevenient grace.
Yes.
The grace that you didn't even realize was available until you looked up.
Exactly. That has been keeping your carcass alive. In all of your mess. It has been keeping you.
And then his prevailing grace.
Yes.
That helps you to prevail through everything.
Grace. That's right.
Grace. It's his marvelous grace. It's that
That's
him.
Right.
It's his marvelous grace. And I preached a sermon a few weeks ago called The Doxology of Grace. Mm-hmm. And Jude, he says, now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before his presence with exceeding joy. The text, Jude is letting you know you will fall. Mm-hmm. But is now unto him that is able to keep you from falling.
And that's grace.
That's grace.
Keeping is grace.
So then not only does he keep you from falling, he presents you blameless.
Exactly.
Not sinless. He presents you blameless.
Blameless, exactly.
So you had to describe what is blameless. Blameless is Abraham. Blameless was Job. Blameless was even David in the midst of all of the stuff that he did. Because God didn't see the sinner. I mean, he didn't see he saw their sins, but he felt them in their sin and in their body. He knew them. Because David, what happens with David? Nathan comes to him, gives him the story, and David says, man, you're right. I am the man. Right. Abraham says, I don't know why I lied on tell everybody that Sarah was my sister. I don't know why I did it. Job, yeah, I had some doubt. Lord, I had some little going on, but God knew their heart. He knew them.
They were his children.
Grace of God. Man, if it wasn't for God's grace, none of us would be here.
That's right.
It would have ended after Adam and Eve.
That's right. So that's what Pastor, you got a taste of what Pastor Gibson is heading over to the Philippines to do. Mm-hmm. He is heading over there to preach the word of God, a journey to hope. Yes. And I believe that message of hope is exactly what our communities need, is the idea that, we can believe again.
Yeah, better is coming.
But tomorrow will be better.
Yes.
It will be better.
And listen, better is coming. You know what that does for a person? What has better is coming done for you?
Exactly.
Just having that knowledge.
That knowledge. And real quick, we're out of time. And I can get ready to roll the drum, the participants thing, and we'll give you a gift. But real quick before we go, one of the things I didn't get to for us to talk about is the fact that our church, for example, is really scared of ecumenism because of doctrinal impurity or doctrinal corruption. But we need to be mature enough to be able to work with other people. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. To work with other people for the sake of community building. Our councilman, our councilman visited our church and invited me to pray at one of his meetings. And one of the questions I asked at the council meeting is, what can the church do to help to build our community? And what he says is the starting point is y'all need to work together. Because your little church can't invest in apartments. Your little church can't invest in the structures needed to put this community up. But if you work together, if all your little churches come together and work together, we're not talking about doing a Bible class together. We're not talking about but working together to build community, we could really get some stuff done. But our obsession with our own personal beliefs which doesn't go out the window with working together.
Do you remember a few months ago, Bishop Sheard from the Kojic Church was going to have a meeting with the Mormon church because they have this wonderful feeding program.
And
that
I
the
saw
Mormon
that
church
whole
does.
argument that came
And
out of that.
he backed away from it. And all he wanted to do was to have a discussion on how they ran their warehouse. That's all he wanted to have a discussion about. But they said, well, they're Mormon, and we're so afraid that somebody's going to infuse or infiltrate the doctrine and the pillars of the church.
Dr. Wilson tried to bring T.D. Jakes to, this was years ago though, tried to bring T.D. Jakes to our PELC, and from General Conference down, almost killed him. They had to retract it. It's just crazy. Yeah. And nobody cares that our world is on fire. But anyways, who won tonight? So real quick before we go, the community, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Community, if we're going to heal as community, we as individuals, I have to accept that I have issues. As an individual, I have to say, hey, I'm not doing well. And then I need to be willing to talk about that. And then we need to accept that as a community. How does the church help? The church needs to own up to some stuff. We're not clean.
Yeah.
The bride of Christ needs a shower. We need to own up to some stuff. Yes, we rape those kids. And not rape, we as in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, as in Christianity, we rape those kids. And we as a church, just like we want the police officers to take ownership of what bad cops are doing, we as a church have to take ownership for some of the mess that's happening in Christendom. So yeah, we messed up. We're sorry. Can you give us a chance to work with you? We want to work with you at your elementary school level, where we can cut off that lack of graduation, where we can increase the graduation rate, where we can get these kids ready for their tests, where we can provide uniforms so they look dignified on their way to school, so we can provide lunches. Can we work with you at that level? Stop disfellowshipping people's children when they get pregnant.
Yeah.
In the name of Jesus, stop it. What they need is a parenting class. What they need is a mentor. What they need is help. They are already hurting.
They need somebody to bandage the wound.
They need somebody to bandage the wound. Pastor Melidor said, disfellowship is for cancers. That's what you give for. There's a way to do that, and there is a place for that. But come on, man. Let's embrace people that come in our church dirty and drunk and hurting. The same grace of God that we have experienced, let's shower that on them. Yeah. And those are some different ways. I think those are some of the recaps that I got from our conversation.
Finally, we can't love others until we learn how to love ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
I can't love you if I can't use that text and say I love your neighbor as you love yourself if I don't know really how to love myself.
And I can't love myself if the church keeps telling me I don't deserve God's grace. If the church keeps telling me how unworthy and filthy and sinful and messed up I am, I can't ever get to love myself.
Yeah. Language creates reality.
Language creates reality. All right, Annika, who won? Good conversation, Doc. Those are some of my.
While Annika is spinning that wheel, I just want to remind you to jump into your Cash App and send a little pocket money to Pastor Gibson's way as he gets ready to travel to the Philippines. Linda Law, you are our winner. Winner, chicken dinner.
That's our prayer ministry leader at Philadelphia.
Oh, that's your people. All right. Well, Sister Law, here's what we would like for you to do, ma'am. Head over to KW Ministries. It's going to come up in a second.
.net/claim your prize. Enter your information there, and you will be gifted, ma'am.
You're going to get a gift card. The gift card can only be used in our store. And you can pick out whatever you want. There's some stuff there. Kamala's brand new book, A Journey to Healing,
which I encourage you to get. It's a therapeutic approach to finding who you're meant to be.
That's not a part of the the package. You know, that's just fresh off the press. So
but it's
we
only
got it.
$15, guys. So jump on in and get it.
But please head over to claim your prize, and Anna Kay will take care of you from there. Thank you so much, Sister Law, for coming on and supporting your pastor. We're so grateful.
And if you want to support him monetarily, there goes that Cash App popping back up on the screen.
So that's claim your prize for your gift, Sister Linda Law. But please, before you all head on to your Cash Apps, and let's send Pastor Gibson to the Philippines.
$sign Pastor Gibson or $sign Mrs. LD Gibby.
Hey, listen, if it's Monday night, you're live with KW
and Jay.
Yay!
Peace.